Welcome to Creatives Processing, a podcast where creatives come together to talk about their process and process what it means to create for a living. I'm your host, Sarah Mulligan Williams. I'm the creative director behind Word of Mouth, my studio partnering with small businesses and nonprofits on creative strategy, brand identity, and content production. I also curate Comedy 101, a live film series where I put foundational comedy films in front of an audience and talk about what makes them work. And now, this podcast. 3 pretty different things on the surface, but they're really all the same thing to me. An excuse to dive deep on a subject to learn the craft behind it. Every episode of Creatives Processing shines a light on people who make art for a living and have figured out a few things along the way. We learn what their process for creating is, what guides their approach, and get a glimpse of how their wonderfully unique brain works. My guest today is Maegan Gindi, photographer, director, and artist based in Brooklyn, New York. Her practice spans across mediums: portraiture, writing, audio, motion, sculpture, directing, fine art, and what ties all of it together is connection. At the core of everything Maegan makes is a drive to create connection through conversation, with her subjects, with the work itself, and with the people around her. Photography, portraiture specifically, is the medium, but that impulse shows up everywhere, including in the critique group she's run in her studio for years, a space carved out specifically for photographers and visual artists to sit with each other's work outside of any commercial context. I wanted to talk with Maegan because she has spent nearly 2 decades figuring out what it means to keep creating, through grief, through industry shifts, through the parts of a creative life no one puts in the highlight reel. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, please follow or subscribe to Creatives Processing wherever you're listening or watching right now. It's the best way to make sure you never miss an episode, and it genuinely helps this show reach more people. You can also follow at Creatives Processing on Instagram. That's where I share new episodes first. There's also a monthly newsletter that covers all things creatives processing, Comedy 101, Word of Mouth, plus playlists, book recs, and more. Check the show notes for the link. All right, here's my conversation with Maegan Gindi. You've recently described yourself as an artist first, with photography happening to be the medium of choice. Is that a recent revelation for you?
Yeah, that's something that I feel has developed in recent years. I think that came from really thinking about what I'm making, what I'm putting out there. I do see myself as an artist first, and photography is the primary lens through which I explore that art. For me, I'm thinking more in my fine art practice, because I do have a fine art practice. Like, I'm thinking more sculpturally, I'm thinking installation, I'm thinking performance. So I'm trying to figure out how to bring that into the commercial photography. But I think just calling myself a photographer only is limiting. And so, now I'm directing more. So I see that as being, part of the artistry of all of it. I'm also art directing my projects. I am producing my projects. I am, doing set design on some of them. I also run a critique group. So I'm like curating. I feel like just saying photography feels a little limited.
What did making pictures look like for you at 12 when you started? What were you drawn to? When did it stop feeling like just a thing you did and start feeling like something that you were?
Oh, that's so layered. So I started at 12 with disposable cameras. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people now, like, that's the iPhone for them, right? Like, I was listening to Paul Kukier. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm so sorry for anybody that knows his work. But in listening to a podcast with him, it was interesting because he talked about how the iPhone was his entry into photography, and his work is so dynamic. And I think that it doesn't really matter what you're using to start. So for me, I didn't know what I was doing. It was the 90s, and I just had access to a point and shoot disposable camera. And so I just started using that. I was mostly documenting my friends, just my life, just taking pictures of things that I saw. I wasn't really thinking much about it. And then when I got to high school, a friend of mine was like, we have a dark room here. You could just develop your film yourself. And I was like, oh, wow, that'll save me so much money. Little did I know that photography is one of the most expensive careers you could go into. So I started taking photo classes like in a real way, junior year or sophomore year of high school. And then junior year, I was at the International Center of Photography. I submitted a portfolio and I got accepted to the Teen Academy program there. And then I went on to TA there after college. Just like, and during college, like I'd come back and like TA for summers and just like, I don't know, they were just such a wonderful place and they still are. But for me, I felt it was like so formative. And I think that that's really when I would say I started doing it in some sort of real way, because I was like in this institution, I was in a class with people who were not my standard classmates, other high school kids from other high schools, looking at art history, looking at photo art history, having guests come and speak to us, like guest photographers. Like I remember Joe Rodriguez was one of our photographers that came and talked. And then I went on to do the New York State Summer School of the Arts, which is a really incredible program where you are a high school student, you're studying at a college and you're using their facilities. And like every day after classes, it was, we did like photo art history, or like we would look at, films and stuff like that, or we had visiting guest artists come and we went to like different museums and stuff. So it started to feel like, oh, wow, this is a thing. And then, going to college for it, it's kind of like the way that it evolved. But it was never something that like I intended to do with like a thing. It was just something that I was just doing because it's my way of like exploring the world and understanding my surroundings.
So let's talk a little bit briefly about that world and your surroundings, because that was South Brooklyn. I mean, we're both
born and raised.
We're both from South Brooklyn, but like for those listeners who don't know Brooklyn, like Brooklyn is huge. It's like it's its own city. It's a part of the 5 boroughs of New York City, but it's its own city. It's, pretty working class, not particularly glamorous. What was capturing your eye that you were taking photos of?
It's funny, like South Brooklyn was never a thing. It was just Brooklyn. Like I didn't even know that there was a North and South until college, and people were like, moving to Williamsburg. Like I remember somebody senior year, it was Pari Dukovic, photographer. He is now like, he's very much blown up. But he moved, I think he was doing an internship with Platon, another photographer, and he was living in Williamsburg. And it was just so strange to me because I was just like, what is this place? I've never even heard of this or been here. What was capturing my eye? I think it was just life. It wasn't like, I don't think it was like anything that people would be like, oh, that's so Brooklyn. Like, it wasn't like I was taking pictures of graffiti or anything. It was just like, I was like 12 years old and I was just like, oh, okay. Like my friends, like hanging out. Maybe when I got to like high school, some of those like point and shoots, because I was still using disposables. I think when I got to high school, it was a little bit more like underage drinking, but it wasn't like, oh, this is underage drinking. It was just like my friends and I are doing like degenerate stuff, or like friends playing in bands. Like, honestly, that was it. It was like friends playing in bands, like hanging out in basements, things like that. It wasn't anything.
Do you have photos from the temple?
I never actually went to the temple because I wasn't super into punk. I was more going to L'Amour because that was like more of a metal venue.
L'Amour's. Yes. I know L'Amour's.
Yes. That was more where I was going, because it was like more, I wasn't super into metal, but it was a little bit more like not punk. I wasn't like a super punk kid. I was definitely more of like a gothy kid, if you can't tell by like the purple hair.
Yeah, since I've moved to California, I mean, I had pink hair in Portland, and now that I'm in California, just like how does my hair curate my identity now? And I feel like I'm like more blonde in my hair than I did before, but yes, very much a goth kid at heart. Always have been, always will be.
And also, when you were asking about like Brooklyn and stuff like that. Like I went to the Whitney Biennial last weekend, and one of the security guards was like, "Oh, I love your nameplate. It's so 90s." And I was like, "This is actually from 1999." Yes. Like legitimately from 1999. I feel like it's very me. Like if you see this picture in the back, that's a picture that I took actually in the pandemic. And I use that. That's like the end page of my print portfolio because I was just
I
like,
love that.
it's just me, you know, and then like my info's at the bottom.
I love that. Where'd you go to high school?
Murrow, Edward R. Murrow. That's where I started doing photography. No, really, I gotta shout it out. Like one of my, I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
two of my closest friends, I still talk to. Bryant Fisher, he's an incredible cinematographer. He started at Murrow also. He won an Emmy last year for a doc he shot. My other best friend, Adam Bernstein, he works at Alamo Drafthouse, so like still involved in like film. You know, so it's like those people are my people. Like I've known them for 25 years. I'm very grateful to have them in my life.
So yes, Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, New York. We both left New York. You know, we were both working in New York editorial around the same time. You know, I was art directing and designing. You were shooting and photo editing. And then we both eventually picked up and left. You know, you moved to Vegas for a few years and where you started your fine art practice. I went west too, Portland and the Bay. But there's something about that arc that I find really interesting, like leaving the city you grew up in. I think a lot about how where you live and where you spend your time in influences your art. Can you talk about how where you've lived has shaped who you are as an artist?
Ooh, yeah, interesting. So I moved to Las Vegas because my dad moved there when I was pretty young. And I was like, I don't really know who he is, and I don't know who I am in context of him. So to me, it was really important to like go out there, make some memories, photograph him. I was just like not really happy in New York. I think I was just over it in some to some capacity. And I'm really glad that I did it. I spent 2 years there, photographing my dad, audio recordings of my dad. So, you know, I'm grateful that I moved out there. I think it was very formative for me to live somewhere that wasn't New York because even though I went to college in Rochester, so RAT, shout out RAT. Um, gotta shout them out, you know, like
Yeah.
they've given back to me in a lot of ways. So I wanna put them on if I can. Um, but yeah, like, you know, I only knew the east side of the country. And so even though it was really hard that my dad left when I was pretty young, it gave me this opportunity to see a different part of the country and therefore like experience photography and myself in this other way, you know. And through photography, I was able to repair a lot of my relationship with my dad. I wanted to make memories of him as I got older because I was like, you know, he's going to die one day and I don't know who he is. Um, so that kind of led to the fine art work that I've been making about him, about us, about our relationship. So yeah, it's just been really formative to leave and come back. Um, I felt like I was blowing up my life and that it was going to be like irreparable because, you know, people forget who you are, those contacts don't stay, or people move on. And, you know, I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I just like wreck my whole life? But I think that, you know, looking back, it was one of the most important decisions that I made.
And I have to wonder too, like the amount of freedom you must have felt living in New York, being able to just like hop on a bus or the subway and just like explore anywhere and moving to a place that is like so car centric too. You know, just sprawl and stretches of miles of just like cement brick wall blocking out homes. So it's just like such a trip whenever I visit Vegas and I'm just like, who lives here and why?
Yeah, Vegas is an interesting place. I really love it because it's like you have the desert and the desert is like 2 hours away if you want to like go out into like nothing. And it's incredible because you cannot do that anywhere in New York. So it's like, yeah, you have freedom in some sense, but you don't in others because it's like I'm just surrounded by people. Like I remember in the pandemic, I rode my bike to the beach and I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be at the beach, I'm gonna be alone. And it was like, no. You're just like everyone else had the same idea. And I was like, I
Yep.
can't escape anyone. Like I'm just here forever with people, you know. So it was a little frustrating in that sense. And I do miss Vegas for that reason.
Mm. What are the best parts that you feel you've taken from living in New York, Vegas?
Well, I think that like, there is a grittiness to being a New Yorker, at least born and raised here. Like I always say that like in my little like bio when I send out to clients like a PDF, I say that I'm like the summation of my hometown, like a sleek sensibility coupled with like this grit. It's like I think that there's like a sleekness to my work, but like there's still a grit, there's still a heart, there's still like a attention that like is important for me and feels very authentic to who I am. I never want things to be sterile. I want them to be clean and slick, but not sterile.
Mm.
And then Vegas is just like, I don't know, whatever you want is there. It's kind of crazy. It really does feel like the wild, wild west. It's like they say New York is a city that never sleeps. That's really Vegas. Vegas like never sleeps. It's so crazy.
Absolutely.
It's like everything is 24 hours all the time. I think for me, what that really gave me, like the takeaway for me was like, there needs to be a balance between work and play. Like, I mean, if I'm not a gambler, so like I never really got into that world, but like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, you know what? The money's in my pocket. I'd like to keep it there. Thank you very much.
That's enough. It's just
That's
like
how I feel.
I every time I remember going to Vegas for the first time for a friend's bachelor party years ago, and my idea of a good Vegas time is sitting by a pool, watching something on my phone, and then dipping into the water and having like a $30 Mai Tai. Many of them. That's my idea of a good time in Vegas. Like so many of them brought, and like I've been to Vegas and stuff for like conferences and stuff, and like people are like, yeah, I can't wait to hit the slots or whatever. I'm like, I'm never going to be in a state of mind where, and I don't think I will ever have so much money in my life where I'm like, you know what, this $500, I'm okay to lose this just on chance. And that is just bonkers. It's bonkers to me. So like, that's not what I ever go to Vegas for.
Oh my God. So same. Like, I think there was one night I went out and I was like, I have $60 and this was like, my 20s. So I was just like, $60. That's the cost of a fun night out. That's it. And I was like, if I lose it, I lose it. And I did, and it's fine. I had fun with it. And I was like, I'm not taking more out. But Vegas taught me, like a little bit of like a slow down. Slow down. Remember what's important. Remember why you're here. Like it's okay to like go out with your friends, hang out, have fun. Like, that's not everything. And that's also why I was like, I have to move back. Like I had to get out of Vegas because I was just like, not that I said slow down too much, but I didn't feel like there was growth. Like I was coming back to New York to do work. It wasn't really like there was work there. And at the time I hadn't really thought, I was like starting to do stuff in LA, but like not really a lot. So New York was my home base. So I was eventually like, okay, I have to like really come back here. I did what I needed to do, which was spend time with my dad, normalize our relationship, like have it feel like, okay, I live here with you and I'm making memories with you as an adult, but now I have to get back to work. And how can I maintain our relationship like while I'm gone?
Yeah. There's something really interesting you said there about like you learn to slow down in Vegas. And I remember a big part of me leaving New York was I felt done with it. Like you said, I felt burnt out and I wanted to try, living on the opposite end of the coast. And I definitely learned to slow down in Portland. But you know what they say about Portland, it's like where young people go to retire. I keep on describing right now living in the Bay as like a Goldilocks era where New York felt too big. I love it. It's always going to be a home to me, but it felt too big. Portland, too small. Whereas like the Bay, it's like a nice little middle ground between the two. It's much larger than Portland. It's not as big as New York, but like there's enough happening there where I feel like not the odd person out with that New York East Coast assertive attitude, though I have experienced some California chill out here that is like nails on a chalkboard to me, where it's like I don't think I'm type A, but then I interact with people that are like type Z, and I'm like, how do you live? How does this operate for you?
That's actually really funny because when I was living in Vegas, I remember sometimes like some people would be like, "Oh wow, you're from New York. What is that like?" And then other people would be like, "Oh, whatever." And I love the people who are just like, "Whatever." Like I'm not impressed because it was like a reminder that the world is so much bigger than New York. Like, we're from here. And so we never had that like, oh, I'm coming to New York moment, like, I've worked for this forever. This has been like my dream. Like I just wound up here. I was just born here. Like, and I kind of like envy those people who are just like, New York, this is my dream. Like I worked and struggled to be here, because it's like they have a different sense of this place than I do. It's like this is just home. So like if something doesn't work out, I'm just here. It's like this is my fallback because this is just where I'm from. Which is like a blessing.
That's so interesting.
A blessing.
So I think about that a lot. I think about that a lot, where it's like so many people like go to New York for like to pursue their dreams, or even like go to LA to pursue their dreams. And like, what is it like when you're there? And it's like, I'm pursuing my dreams, but there isn't like another place to run off to. It's always living here. So the failures, the successes, like it's permeated into like the fabric of where you live.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel like, I don't know, growing up here, I have this like deep appreciation for art. It's just everywhere. Like, and that was something that I really missed in Vegas, was like, I just wanted more of that. Like there was no place where I could just like go. Like I often say museums are my sanctuaries, and there was like none of that in Vegas. Like the Bellagio has like a little art gallery where they had like an Andy Warhol thing, I think, once, and I was like, oh cool, I'm going to go to that. But it was just like so small. It was like smaller than like a gallery in Chelsea that's like one room.
Whenever I think of like earliest memories of art in New York, I mean, I remember just seeing like Keith Haring art all around, like murals and stuff. But there's this one installation, I think it's on the D train when you're leaving DeKalb, about to go on the bridge. And it's like that stop motion art that happens when you pass by. I remember like whenever I think of like what's my first memory of art in New York, it's that, and thinking that was just like a fever dream. And then years later taking the subway again and seeing it and be like, oh shit, that thing was real and it's so cool.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, it's just everywhere. Like the art is so integral to the culture here. I think one of my first art memories was like, I think it was in 5th grade, and they took us to the Met, and we had to like sketch out an art piece. Like we were all in one room, and we had to like pick an art piece and we had to like sketch it. And I was just like, I hate this. Cause like I'm so bad at drawing. I'm like just not like a physical artist in that sense. And I remember, because it was donation based, my dad would take me to the Met on like a Sunday. Like my parents were divorced, and so I would have like the weekend with him. And I remember we would always go to the Met because it was like he just paid like $1 for us both to get in. And I hated that museum. I just like my earliest memories is just like, but that's also one of the amazing things about being a New Yorker, is you're just like, I'm 10 years old and I have a least favorite museum.
Mm-hmm. The privilege of having a least favorite museum.
Like shitty little snobby kid, even though like I definitely wasn't, but I was just like, ugh, I hate the Met.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have an abundance of it, it's pretty easy to take it for granted or to feel jaded about it. I remember visiting a friend who was studying abroad in Paris, and she had been there for like 3 months at that time, and I had never been to Paris before. And then spending a week with her, and she's just being so negative about everything in Paris, like this, that. And I'm like, what? She's like, I just want to like hang out in my apartment and watch Arrested Development. And I'm like, look, I love Arrested Development. Like it's one of my favorite shows. That's what we do in our dorm in the Bronx at Manhattan College, which is now Manhattan University. So shout out Manhattan University. It's now not a college. Very confusing. But that's not something I want to do when I'm in Paris. It's like, so like you're immersed in a place for a little bit, and then it's just so easy to be like, even just like living here for now 2 years in the Bay, like I have to just like remind myself to slow down and be thankful of all the art, and just like, my God, look, there's a Jurassic size succulent around the corner. It's like, yeah, there's beauty everywhere, but it can be really easy to just like get in your own head and, not appreciate that stuff.
Yeah, for real. Like I have to remind myself, like, I came back here because I want to engage with the art, and I should go see more of it. I've never been to the Frick, so I'm planning on going soon. I've never been to Cooper Hewitt, which is crazy. So it's like,
I've never been there.
Right? It's like it looks like
Mhm.
such a beautiful building. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to go. I'm like planning some trips to go like see some art and go to some galleries too.
love it. So before you had said, talking about, your photography, it's not sterile, but it's very clean. You've talked about trying to tune out trends and to make work that feels timeless rather than of the moment. How do you hold that line in an industry that moves really fast?
Uh I know that this sounds crazy, but I think I'm just like a little bit of a hater. And so I see things and I'm just like, doesn't do it for me. Like I get it, it's cool. But I see it as a trend. I see it as like a thing that's gonna pass. It's like gonna date my work, and like I think that people will be able to look back and be like, oh, the 90s are coming back around in 2024, 2026. It's just like over it. Like I'm all like once it starts, it's like cool, but I'm like already over it as it's starting. Because I'm like, what work will like withstand the test of time? Like I think of like Avedon, Irving Penn, like some of these like amazing photographers that we've had like art historically, and like their work just stands the test of time. You look at it, it's just classic. Like it looks contemporary even now. And I want
Okay.
that to be like how my work is viewed and how my work is perceived over time. It's like I don't want you to be able to look at a photo and be like, "Oh yeah, that's very obvious like of the trends that were happening in the 2000s." Like I want it to be like, "Oh, I actually have no idea when this was shot. This could have been shot like yesterday or this could have been shot 20 years ago. Like you have no idea." And also like, when I think of my portfolio and I look at the evolution of my work, like I don't want it to look like a different person shot this like 10 years ago, 20 years ago or something. Like it should all feel like me and the evolution of me, but I don't want outside influence like aesthetic influences necessarily in terms of trends. Like I think aesthetic influences are important obviously because like they affect how you see, like maybe color styles and like toning of an image, like that might be something that influences, but like the lenses that I'm using and like post production being like glitchy, or like there was a phase where like people were just using all these gels and it was like let's just throw a bunch of colors together and see what happens across like six lights. It's like that's just not me. But like these trends come around, like they come back around, like now everybody's really into like lo-fi, like old point and shoot cameras that we had when it was like, the early aughts, because they were just like very pocketable, accessible, like low quality, like people are really into that now. And that's
It's
cool, but it's
so
just not
it's
me.
so it's so funny to see like Instagram ads for filters that make your photos now look like the flash on a disposable camera.
Right, 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 right.
Fascinating.
Yeah, like I'm also like not an on-camera flash girl. Like I'll do it if a client really likes it, but like that's just not my aesthetic. Even like when I'm shooting, like if I get hired to shoot like a high-end event or something like that, I really want it to feel like a lifestyle story. Again, I don't want it to feel just like paparazzi, quick, flashy, like I don't want to say thoughtless because I know that that's not the case. I don't want it to feel like impulsive.
Mm.
Not thoughtless, that's not the right word, impulsive. I don't want to feel impulsive. I want my work to feel considered, thoughtful, um, intentional. I think that those are important words in guiding like principles that I stand by with my work is like intentional, considered, thoughtful, timeless, like you said, classic, clean, but like not sterile. I don't want to take like the personality out of it because like obviously I do have a lot of personality, I think. Um and I want that to show in the work, but I think that that shows in like the way that I interact with people. Like yes, I can be like, loud and extrovert for sure, but I think at the end of the day, to me it really matters to like engage thoughtfully with a person, and I think a lot of my work is like empathetic.
Mm.
I try to really connect with a person and like see them for who they are and still keep it playful and fun and interesting. But like, I think that I do veer more towards like a cerebral kind of place
Yeah.
with my work.
I think this is a good time to then talk about, because you had mentioned Avedon already, but I want to start with what is really the beginning of your career as you know it now, which
Mm.
was, and just for my sweet friends listening, if you'd like to see some of the projects that we'll be discussing today, check the show notes. But Megan, I'd still like you to set the stage talking about your project Shots at the Rally, and especially how Richard Avedon influenced that work.
So in 2015, candidates for presidency were starting to come around and, be talked about. Like, I mean, it was like Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. I remember Ted Cruz was like in the mix for a minute. And I was just like listening. I was listening to the news and like reading articles as one does because I care about politics and what's going on in the world. And they were talking about like, oh, Bernie supporters are just like Bernie bros, and like Hillary supporters are like raging feminists, and Donald Trump supporters are like poor from the middle of nowhere. And I was just like, is that true? Who are these people? And I really wanted to like know more about who the supporters were and what that said about the candidates, like how they kind of speak in conversation with each other. And I don't see myself as an event photographer. And I was like, how can I make interesting, meaningful portraits at these locations, like speaking engagements, political rallies, like, where are these candidates going to be, and how can I talk with their supporters and make images of these people? And so I've always been a fan of Avedon, like I mentioned, and in the American West. And so he was in the American West photographing portraits of people on a white backdrop, just people that are of the American West. Like, I mean, like, you have like the beekeeper, and you have like this young girl, and I think there's like a portrait of like a couple in there. There's just like all these very iconic images. And I was like, I think that this is a good solution to figuring out how to make portraits of people in these places and like, still feel the energy of the place and the person, but like remove them from that and look at them almost like an examination. It's like a documentation of almost like science. It's like I'm looking at them as like a specimen in a way, like I'm examining them. And then when you put them up together, and you have like a whole grid of them, you're looking at them as individuals. And can you tell really like who is who? Can you tell like this is a Trump supporter, this is a Hillary supporter, this is a Bernie supporter? Those are the three that I focused on because those were like the three most important ones. And I photographed like, I don't know, hundreds of people. And it was all self-funded. It was like a lot of work because their schedules are crazy. And you're just like, oh my God, how are you people like in your 60s and 70s like doing this? Like their schedules are so demanding and you just like don't know where they're going to show up. So if like they're in Brooklyn, they might be at like school or something one day, or they might be somewhere else. And it was just like, I remember people like knew what I was doing. So like someone worked at like Channel 1 News or something, and they like tipped me off. They were just like, oh, this person's going to be here. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And so it was like, me figuring out how to do this, because like I couldn't do this alone. It was a lot for just one person. And because the project was set up like where I needed help. And I remember going to like the first one, and I like taped up a backdrop, and I just like used flash. And the photos like didn't look great. And it was also like people smiling in every single one. It was like there was like that. I think that that's just what people do when they get in front of the camera.
Of course.
Like they just smile. It's like we're accustomed to it now. And I remember showing the work to a photographer I used to work with. And he was like, yeah, I'm not interested in these photos. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, because they're not interesting. And I was like, well, what's not interesting about them? And he was like, well, everybody's smiling, so I already get their like vibe. And like the lighting isn't great. Like it's not consistent across all of them. And I was like, okay. And whenever somebody has told me that like something's not good or I can't do it, it's just like fuel for the fire for me to just like go out and prove them wrong. So I wound up actually going to ICP, and because it's like really hard to find the American West Avedon book, like the original book. There's so few of them in print. And I went and I read the introduction and the foreword and about like how Avedon approached this. So I went back there And I sat in the library and read the Avedon book. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to like use this. And so I went back and I iterated and iterated and iterated till the work got stronger and stronger and better. And yeah, it eventually evolved. And I remember just one anecdote. So I was taping backdrops to the walls, and it was like pretty difficult because like I had to get people to like come away from their friends and allow me to photograph them. Like, oh, come here. Okay, cool. And so they'd come, but it was really hard to get people to come. So I was like struggling with getting subjects. And then there was one time, I think it was a Bernie rally at NYU, and I went to go tape up a backdrop, like a 4-foot white backdrop to the wall. And as soon as I started, like, I don't even think I got a piece of tape on the wall, but a cop came up to me and was just like, you need a permit to do that. And I was like, oh no, this is my whole project. There's so many people here. I need to do this. And I had a friend who worked at NYU at the time, and I was like feverishly texting her, DMing her, whatever. And I was like, hey, like a friend from high school. And I was like, hey, I need a permit. Is there any way you can give me a permit? Like, I need permission from NYU to like tape to their building, blah, blah. And it was just like not happening. And I was wasting time, you know, and I had like 2 friends with me who were like assisting me on this and like not paid, you know. I was like, I'll get you lunch, like things that you do in like, you know, your 20s. And we had like, I had like a giant, I don't want to give it away actually. I don't want to give away my secret, but I wound up, yeah, I don't want to say how I did it because I think that like the way that I do it is like very special. So I don't want to like, I don't want to give it away. I'll give away some things, but not everything, you know.
Go on, gatekeep, girl boss.
I'm gonna this process, I don't know. Cause like, you know, I've had my work stolen before. I have had ideas stolen before. And now I keep them I keep certain things close to the chest. Like
that's okay.
I had a major project stolen from me by a major publication. And it still hurts very much to this day. So,
yeah,
you know, every time I see it, comes out like, I think weekly.
And
Sure
does.
And every time I see it, I'm just like, and there's nothing I can really do about it because they're them and I'm me. So yeah, I went up iterating, and that struggle again, you know, like that butting of heads where someone was like, you can't do this. I was like, no, I'm going to. I think that's the Brooklyn in me. I was like, nah, I'm gonna do this. Like, you're not gonna tell me I can't. I'll find a way. And so I wound up figuring it out, and it actually made the project a lot better because I was able to like be more mobile and move through a crowd more smoothly and get more people interested because I was able to like figure out how to come to them as opposed to them coming to me.
Yeah. No, I like that because you're like you're when you're on the ground, you're thinking of like the logistic challenges and then what you could do to make this a more inviting space. Because I mean, being the subject of a photograph can be so vulnerable, can be so unnerving for those that, you know, just aren't comfortable in front of a camera. So making it as easy and seamless as possible for them to stand in front of a seamless that's mobile, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I will say that the Bernie supporters were the ones who were most like cool with being photographed. They were the least like leery of what I was doing. The Hillary supporters, I would say like 75, and the Trump supporters were like 50%. They were just like, I'm gonna wind up on BuzzFeed. Like, where's this gonna go? And I was like, right now, this is just on my website. Like, that's it. That's all this is for. You know, I had everybody sign a model release. And then lo and behold, it did wind up on BuzzFeed. But that was not the intention.
It launched your career in like real tangible ways. It was on BuzzFeed, you know, Politico picked it up. It was part of a group show at NYU. Like, can we talk, like, so did you pitch it to BuzzFeed or did it end up on BuzzFeed? Talk a little bit about like, so now you've created the project. How did it gain traction?
So, you know, I was like posting stuff to Instagram. I was part of this like feminist Facebook group back in like 2015, 2016. And I was just like posting my work there. And I was just like, okay, I think that this is like something. I think that this is like interesting work. You know, does anyone here a photo editor? Does anyone here like work at a publication that might be interested in like, you know, telling a story about like the supporters? Cause I mean, it was like, we had Hillary. It was like the first, female candidate for president. We had Trump, and everybody was like, what is happening? And then we had Bernie, who was like, so out there with the things that he was saying, like a democratic socialist. So I was like, I think that there's a story with these images, and like these just shouldn't sit here. Like it's not doing anybody any good for me to just like sit on these. And then it turned out that someone was actually, I think she was like senior photo editor at BuzzFeed News at the time. Someone I went to college with was in the group. And so I showed the work. I also had shown the work to like Time Magazine, a couple of other places. And they were like, yeah, we can't take this because they were like, these are amazing. Do you have quotes from anybody? Do you have their ages? And I was like, I have their names. I have their email addresses. Like, I'm not a journalist. What do I know? I just like decided to do this because I was interested. And I didn't have any of that information, but I was like, I have model releases and I have their emails. Like I can reach out to them. But they were like, okay, we're going to pass because you don't have all that. But BuzzFeed, they wound up doing like a brief interview with me, and then they showed the work. And that was really helpful, because I think that that's how Politico found it, because it was on BuzzFeed. And then the group showed NYU. A friend of mine told me that they were doing a political show and were accepting submissions. And so Mark Peterson was also in the show. So that was cool to like have my work part of like a larger conversation with these like, really great journalist photographers, because I never saw myself in that way. But I think what I found really fascinating about this project was that, it had this fine art aspect to it where like I printed these photos and framed them, and they were like on display and had art statement and everything. And then they were journalistic in nature. Politico wound up picking it up, and it was editorial in that, it was also on BuzzFeed, and it was in a magazine, like the physical print issue of Politico, which I didn't even know that existed. So to me, it was like this well-rounded 360 project where like a lot of, I think being in school, it was just like they put us into boxes. It's like, you're a commercial photographer, you're a fine art photographer, you're, a journalist. And I was just like, I can be all of these things in my own way.
You then iterated on it for the Women's March in 2018. You did it in color this time, audio.
That is an image from it actually right there. So, iterating better, right? Learning from what the feedback I got. And like, that was, I didn't have any quotes. I didn't have people's ages. I didn't have context. And I think that like, in order for a company or an editorial to like want to take this on and like a bigger story, how do we talk about it if we don't have that? So when I went to the Women's March, I did the same thing, this time in color. The supporters project shots at the rally was in black and white, went in color. And I brought an audio recorder, and I started audio recording people. Like I was like, hey, what's your name? What's your age? Where are you from? Why are you here? What's something that you're feeling today? And having that changed everything. Like I immediately pitched the work out to Teen Vogue, The Cut, Refinery 29, and In Style, and they all wanted it. And that was so exciting because I remember I was like, working for another photographer on a job, like digital teching, and I was like sending this out feverishly and then like getting emails back, and I was like, oh my God, people are like really excited about this, but like I'm on set for another photographer. Like, how do I balance all this? It was intense, but it was good. And Teen Vogue was like willing to pay me for it. And I was like, okay, cool. And they let me write the story as well. And it was like a short intro, to the photos and what it was about. But it got a lot of traction also on their site, and people were really engaging with it. It was like, they said that it was like one of their best articles that they had ever published. And I was like, wow, it's really cool that I had this idea and that you guys like accepted it and took it. And that led to me having like my first writer's byline. So from there, I was able to like pitch. Yeah, I pitched to like Vice, and I wrote it for Vice also. I did the Dyke March for them. And then I also pitched again to Teen Vogue later that year to shoot queer teens at Pride. Like, what does Pride mean to me? Like, as a queer teen growing up in New York, my first Pride parade was with my dad at like 11 years old. And it was like an accident. Like we just stumbled upon it. We were like going into the city on a Sunday, just like go to a museum or something to just like spend the day. And then we like the streets were blocked off and we heard like all this noise. And we are like, what's going on? And then my dad called it the alternative parade, the alternative day parade. Like, what does that even mean?
Cool. I love Nirvana.
Nirvana's actually like my favorite band of all time. So I'm glad.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like I used to celebrate Kurt Cobain's birthday. Very much a Nirvana fan for sure.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was like, this is a personal story for me being a queer teen growing up here and like my exposure to it. And, again, like growing up in New York and having that kind of like eclectic liberal background where we get to like see so many different walks of life. And that definitely influenced me. And then I brought that influence into this. And so, they were open to it and they assigned me a writer for that one, which was nice. I didn't have to do everything myself. And I got paid. I got to produce it. I got to, cast it. I got to shoot it. I got to retouch it. The other ones I got to write as well. So it was like really me. It was like the entire project was me. It was like concepted, art directed, shot, interviewed, written, casted, produced, retouched, now printed up on the wall there.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm still like, what hand is it? Okay, there you go.
Every single time. I don't even remember which number recording this is that I've done, but every single time I'm like, this way. Oh no, it's this way.
There it is.
Mirrored videos are difficult, man.
This is wild. It's still blowing my mind. Thanks for bearing.
But I love like, I remember trying to make the shift out of publishing and to do literally anything else. Like I loved working editorial and publishing, but I was like, this is a narrowing field. I want to try something different. Where else could these skills and these passions take me? And I remember trying to explain how the art direction, design, photo editing, location scouting, casting, shooting, stuff that I was doing in editorial could be translated to agency work, could be translated to in-house brand work. And a lot of times people have a really hard time. Like if you haven't done the exact thing they're hiring you to do, there's like a crisis of faith that you would ever be able to do it. Like it needs to be a tangible one-to-one relation to like, I have shot black and white portraits before, so I will hire you to do black and white portraits. But knowing like, so many different titles and like hearing you say like, yes, photography is the medium that you've chosen, but you are an artist first and foremost. Like this speaks to that because you're not just like picking up the camera and that's that. Like you're not a robot just pressing a button. You're thinking about, not only are you thinking about the technical aspects of what's showing up in your camera, you're thinking about the subject, you're thinking about what is the environment that we're shooting in? How is it affecting the subject? It's not just like, it's funny starting out with a point and shoot, but photography is so much more than just pointing and shooting. And clearly the things that you've done speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the art aspect of it, like I'm bringing art history into it as well. It's like referencing these other photographers or just like painters too. Like I was a minor in art history, and understanding like what came before me and how to reference it and like why that's important. Like, oh my gosh, the Christopher Anderson shoot for Vanity Fair was just like so incredible where he shot the Trump cabinet. And some of those images.
Oh my God.
Right. And some of those images are like referencing art history. He's pulling from other times and other images. And you're just like, wow, like the Stephen Miller image, like, that's a direct reference to other photographs that we've seen. So it's just, it is beyond just photography. I think it's like looking at the world and how you're processing the world, and the lens is just the medium in which I'm doing it. But it's not always, like I said, I have fine art practice where I'm doing some sculptural things and some installations and video work. And it's like more multifaceted. Like, I think that's like the direction that I'm interested in going with my work.
Yeah. So from a self-funded, backdrop-focused project to a commissioned celebrity portrait for the Washington Post. I want to talk a little bit about the Carrie Condon shoot that you did. Celebrity portrait, stills and motion, location scouted. So a lot of the stuff that we've already mentioned here, but 25 minutes to get everything. Hearing that, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Because I've lived in that world where like, yep, this high profile talent only has 25 minutes. How do you prepare for something like that?
I was actually going to say 25 minutes is quite generous.
It is generous.
It's very generous. I photographed Eli Manning earlier this year and had 5 minutes. And that's par for the course. It just is. People are just like, what do you even do in 5 minutes? I'm like, it's all like hours of preparation.
Yep.
Yeah, 25 minutes is like generous. You're like, 25-minute shoot. I'm just like, oh my God, people are going to be listening to this and being like, that's like a lot of time. And it is a lot of time actually, like for
it is.
But like, you know, to get everything done in that amount of time is still like not necessarily easy at all. It just requires like a lot of preparation. So like you said, it was shot at the Four Seasons in Midtown. You know, a lot of location scouting ahead of time, tech scouting, figuring out like what I'll need to do, how to prepare. That cinematographer I mentioned earlier, Bryant Fisher, he was the cinematographer for this. We've known each other for 25 years, so it's really easy for us to work together. You know, he just, I direct and he listens and he will like say, hey, I want to try this thing. And I'm like, sure, go ahead. You know, like I trust you. Like we have a really great relationship. So it just makes life a lot easier. You know, having good crew, people that I've worked with and trusted, scouting ahead of time and figuring out where I want to shoot, what the lighting is going to be, getting an idea of that.
Can you talk a little bit about your research process of like finding a place? Like what's the criteria that you're looking for?
Well, for the location, she was doing a press junket for the F1 movie that she's starting with Brad Pitt. So it was like, you know, the location was already set. So I had no say over that. But inside of that, I had some say. So it was like, you know, do we want to shoot in the restaurant? Do we want to shoot in a hotel room? Do we want to shoot at the bar? Like, what are the areas that will A, feel private for her, B, be the most visually interesting, and C, be actually like possible to get everything that we need in this period of time. So we wound up shooting in the lobby bar. It was really beautiful. It was closed off to us, you know, just kind of like scouted out a couple places, was like, okay, I think this could be cool. This could be cool. This could be cool. And making it just very easy to pivot between shots. So, you know, 25 minutes is a lot of time for them, but in the grand scheme of things, 25 minutes, like make interesting images and do video is like not a lot of time. So totally. How can we, it's like, it's a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time.
That's what I mean there, where it's like 25 minutes. I mean, for photography, I'm like, that actually is a lot of time, but the fact that it's not just stills, you're also getting motion too. So like it's two different mediums. So trying to like hold both equally, or is one held more than the other, but it's just like, it's all content in the end. So just trying to make it all work is the logistical web.
Yeah, for this, it was, I mean, it was definitely more photography focused, but you know, you still got to get the video too. And you got to have everything look good. Cause you know, I'm always like, never going to see you again. You know, more than likely, I'm never going to see you again. This is going to be it. So let's get it while we're here. So, you know, had used a lot of the continuous lights for video, just added a little bit for a flash for a photo to like make sure we had that look good. And she's like held still. We did two different setups. We had basically like, I think it was like 8 minutes for photo and then 5 minutes for video with like a 2-minute transition. That was kind of it, you know, which sounds like, I mean, you know, when we were saying like some shoots are 5 minutes, that's basically what it was. It was like a 5-minute shoot times 2, because that's really all I had. And then like the video. So yeah, it was like, it was a lot. Originally, they told me that I was going to have even less time. They were just like, oh, so, you know, this is a 10-minute shoot. And I was like, no, I was actually promised 45 minutes. But yeah, I was originally promised 45 minutes. So I thought we were going to do 3 different setups. That got nixed pretty early on. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not doing that. And then I negotiated 25 minutes, but like, there was no client on set. It was just me doing that. So it was like me managing PR, me managing my crew, me dealing with the photos, directing, shooting, all of that. So it's like a lot on one person, but I had like my intern with me. I had 2 assistants. I had my cinematographer. So, we made it work, and I'm very happy with the results. I actually just got contacted by her PR company because they were interested in licensing the images. So I'm happy that everybody was happy with it. Yeah. It's a beautiful piece. I'm so happy with how they came out. She was lovely, very easy to work with. So, all things considered, like press junkets are really stressful days. Thankfully, I got her at the very start of it before she was like exhausted. But yeah, now I have like, another piece for my director's reel that I'm working on. So it all worked out. It's just like my intern actually, we did that, and then we did another celebrity shoot the next day. I photographed and directed Mark Tallman, who is on the Apple show Your Friends and Neighbors that just came out. Came out for season 2, and she, after day 1 with Carrie, she was just like, yeah, I don't think I want to be a photographer. And I was like, oh wow, that's what you took away from this. And then after day 2, she was like, yeah, I don't want to shoot. This is not for me. She actually asked my assistant, she was like, how are you like not exhausted? How are you doing this? Because my assistant was on, both days. And he was like, this is all I want to do with my life. So like, I'm here and I'm learning.
Clearly it energizes you
Yeah,
and your assistant. It's like, if you're finding like, actually this drains me, this doesn't energize me, it's like, that's a pretty clear signal that maybe this isn't what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's like, I think that it either energizes you or it drains you. And if it drains you, it's not the right thing. If it energizes you, it's the right thing. So I think for her, she was like, I want to be a photo editor. Like, I like commissioning, I like curating. Like, I think that that's really more my vibe. Like, this is just like, she's like, I don't have what you have. Like, and I think that that's really true. Like, I've seen, from friends of mine in college, like some people just don't wind up shooting, and that's totally fine. They go into production or they go into photo editing. It's like, you have to have like that drive, that hustle, that motivation, that fire under your ass in order to like make it happen. If you don't have that, like, I don't know, it's like, maybe it's like being addicted to adrenaline in a way. Like, I'm actually going to go rock climbing after this. I think, and I'm going to ride my bike there through the streets of Brooklyn. So I think like you have to have a little bit of like an adrenaline addicted personality in order to like thrive in this career.
I think so, especially with just like how fast news travels, and even more now, just especially like coming from that editorial and like publishing background, where it's just like you're just churning stuff out to try and like keep ahead of the news. I mean, that's sort of like, I hate thinking about like hustle culture, but there is that sort of like, if you remove the hustle culture aspect of it, and it's just like you think of the adrenaline that comes with like a high pressure scenario, or I don't even have time to think, and it just becomes like a natural expression of your body in the art that you're doing. I mean, like that to me isn't hustle, that's just passion coming through in your art.
Well, the business part is the hustle. Like, that's what I think is like, I call it the eternal hustle. Like, I call freelancing the eternal hustle. It just is, because you are like eternally hustling for sure. But then when you're shooting, that's like the flow state.
Yeah.
So like a really nice balance of like, I am present. Like, I never feel more present other than like rock climbing, like, than when I'm shooting. Like, nothing else matters. Like, I don't even, I have to like tell my assistants, I'm like, please tell me when you're hungry, because like I will forget to eat. Like, it's on them. And like, I'm just like, you should speak up when you're hungry. You should tell me.
Yes.
I want you to tell me. Like, same with my interns. I was just like, okay, when it's lunchtime, you gotta like tell me. And that like, build their muscle and like speaking up for themselves. Like, that's something, on the occasion I've actually done it intentionally, because I want them to be able to say like, hey, it's lunchtime, we need to take a break. Like, that's important for them in the workplace, like speak up. So, but sometimes I just forget straight up, like I do. I'm just like,
oh yeah, I forgot to eat so many times this week, because I got into a flow state after weeks of like talking with a client about this capital campaign that we're doing, weeks of talking about it and pulling together references and like settling on the direction. It was like I had weeks to just think about the logo and like what the materials were going to look at. And I just got into like this week was actually designing for it. And I got into like such a flow state and it felt so good. But I was like, oh, when was the last time I ate? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I did like my body doesn't feel that. I just feel like super energized from it.
Yeah, I actually have to set alarms now to like remind myself to eat because sometimes I forget. But I in you talking about all this, it reminded me because you were asking me about like Carrie and how I prepare. Anybody that's Googleable, I always Google them before I photograph them, and I watch interviews so I can like see how they talk, their inflection, their gestures, their mannerisms, like any ideas that I can get ahead of time as to who they are and insights into their personality. I find that to be really helpful. Sometimes I will reference things that they say because it shows that I did my research and it builds a little bit of a connection between us before any shooting takes place. Just because I think it's important for them to feel like that they're considered. Like people should know why we're here. And celebrities sometimes can have a little bit of an ego. So like, we're here in the room for
what?
Like we're here for them, and so like to understand who they are, but also sometimes like they don't want to talk about work. So it's like, you got to figure out that balance. Sometimes it's like, you have to think also like they shot this movie or this TV show or whatever a year, 2 years ago. So it's like for them, it's not necessarily fresh on their mind, but for us it is. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, oh, how long are you in the city? Like, do you have a favorite restaurant? Like, what do you love to do while you're here? What's your favorite part of the city? Or like, what's your bagel order? Just like something like that. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I watched this interview of you talking about the movie and I'm so excited. It's like sometimes like they don't want to feel like, I don't know, played to. So it's figuring out that balance of like, how do I be personable, but don't seem like I'm an ultra fan, but also like be conscientious of like their mental state where they are currently today while we're shooting. So it's like, kind of all those things. Yeah. And then I'll pull like pose references and have like ideas of lighting and stuff. So this way I can communicate easily to my assistants and just be like, hey, here's like an idea of what I'm thinking. Can you make this happen? While I'm like, talking with the DP about like what lenses we're going to use and what movements we should do. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I want to stay on track with my prepared questions so badly, but now I want to know what is your bagel order? And has there ever been a time when you've had no chill and you just couldn't help it and you were such a fan with whoever you were shooting?
Okay, so bagel order depends on if I'm in like an egg mood. That would be like a bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, sometimes ketchup, sometimes hot sauce, depends on my mood.
And it's on a bagel, not like a Kaiser roll, right?
No, it's not a bagel. It's on an everything bagel. I prefer pumpernickel everything bagel. If a place has a pumpernickel everything bagel, they're the real deal.
Yes.
So good. Pumpernickel everything is like, oh my God, that is just so solid. There's a spot near me that has pumpernickel everything. And like, they just know when I walk in the door, it's like pumpernickel everything. If not, I'll go with an egg everything. Like egg everything is also really good. Toasted. I know some people are gonna grill me for that one because they're just like, you don't need to toast a good bagel, but like I'll take a little toast. Like I
like that texture. I like that texture, especially when you cut it open. It's like you get the textural difference of like a well-made bagel has like a little bit of snap on the end and like the inside is fluffy, but sometimes you just don't want all that fluff. Maybe you want like a little bit more of that texture. So I fully understand and subscribe to the light toast.
Just a little toast, lightly toasted. Salt, pepper, ketchup, or salt, pepper, hot sauce, bacon, egg, and cheese. And then, or I will do, one of the everything bagels, whatever's available, with scallion cream cheese. Not a veggie cream cheese girl. I'm definitely a scallion cream cheese girl. That's the bagel order. And then no chill.
We have the same bagel order, so we're great.
And then I was assisting a photographer. I was assisting like back in the day. I used to assist a lot of celebrity portrait photographers. And we were shooting Robert Downey Jr. for the cover of Esquire. And that's when I had a little bit of a no chill moment Not like I
Really?
wasn't unprofessional. It was like, I mean, it was like the peak Iron Man. So he was like
Okay.
everywhere. And I was just like, oh my God, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
I waited till the end of the day. I was like normal professional, because like that's the job. Like you have to just
Yes.
be a person, like your colleagues on set that day,
Yes.
like you're working together, your colleagues.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was just like, can I have a picture with you? And I think that's the only celebrity I ever asked to take a picture with. Yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was like so wonderful. Oh my God, she was a queen, the nicest, most gracious human, like just so kind, pleasant, sweet, funny, gorgeous. Like she just was everything. But like, I don't know, I didn't ask because I was just like, I don't wanna, you know, I feel like it changes the dynamic a little bit. I wasn't shooting again. I was like working with another
Yeah.
photographer, but like I just I don't want to come across as like fangirl. Like I'm like, we're here to
Totally.
do a job. So I was like a little nervous about that.
Hmm.
So I didn't, but I think it might be different like if I'm shooting her one day.
Totally. Yeah. I find it so hard because it's like, it's so hard to not be a fan and just like
I know.
you have one chance and it's just like, I want to tell you how much you mean to me, but it's like, you gotta have a little bit of cool. You gotta be cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have very little of it.
I think, I don't want to like ever make them, I don't know. You gotta be like, I'm here to like on this day, it's my job to tell you what to do and you have to listen to me. And I think it's
Yeah,
hard if they see you as a fan and they're just like, oh, this is just like a fan. Like, you know,
absolutely.
like there's a power dynamic inherently already because like they're the celebrity and they're the ones you're photographing. But you have to be like, no, we're actually equals in this moment. And if anything, I'm telling you what to do and you have to listen to me. So you kind of got to find that balance. That's been my experience.
Yeah. You've talked about wanting to shoot a photo booth at the Oscars or the Emmys, which is, I mean, high pressure, elite talent, very compressed window. And so when I hear you describing the Carrie Condon shoot where you got double fives, super, super short, I'm sure those booths have even less time. Like it sounds like you're already doing a version of that with just doing celebrity portraiture. So you're building that muscle for something like that. So do you see this sort of work training for something bigger?
Yeah, actually, the supporters project is that. Like I had, I would look at timestamps sometimes, like how long did I actually get to photograph somebody? It's like a minute,
Hmm.
literally 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, ranged anywhere from like 1 minute to 5 minutes with people. Yeah, you just got to be really dialed in. So like I think if anything, that prepared me for those like, hopeful future celebrity portrait booths at the Oscars. Like that's like a dream. I would love to do that. I think again it's like just the adrenaline high. You're just like in a flow state. You're just going going going
Yeah.
and it's like, you're thinking on your feet so fast and it's like there's no filter, it's just going. Like I remember I was shooting a job for Louis Vuitton and I was shooting this artist at his home in LA and he was being really difficult. Like he just like didn't want to do it. It's very obvious that he wasn't interested. But like the shoot, like we had like I had 2 sessions with him and video had 2 sessions with him. And so my first session with him, I was like really trying to get him to focus. And I said to him at one point, I was like, I didn't even think. I just said what was on my mind. And I was just like, hey, I'm never going to see you again. Can I just have you look here for 60 seconds? And he just like, and he did it. He was like, oh, right. Yeah, yeah. We're here to do this. It's like we're shooting for like a global luxury brand, dude. Like, please pay attention.
Yeah.
And then the video team, they were all from LA and they're just like, that was so punk rock. I can't believe you said that. And I was just like, I'm here to do a job. Like, I got to get the job done. It's like at the end of the day, like I have a client that I have to like send
Yeah.
photos to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like what, you said like the client wasn't on set, but sometimes they are on set and the dynamic always shifts if there's like a stakeholder involved. So what do you look for in those relationships working with the people that are commissioning you, with your clients? And what makes a great day on set when there's so many voices that need to be heard or want to be heard?
I remember I did a shoot for Vanity Fair. Actually, it was two of them. I shot the CEO of 23andMe and Wojcicki and Carly Kloss at our house, and had Natalie Gianluca there from Vanity Fair. And let me tell you, such a huge difference. Like, Natalie is amazing. She is a goddess. I loved working with her. I just want to work with her all the time. Having her there was so insightful, so wonderful. I felt so supported. Like, to me, I like having a client on set because sometimes it's like I have to send a screenshot and then wait for approval. And it's like it kind of delays the day. And just like having a client there offering their feedback immediately, giving suggestions, being able to like talk about things, feeling supported. Like, some people are just like, oh, I hate having a client on set. I just want to do what I want to do. But like for me, I love working collaboratively. I love it so much. So like having client on set is like, I want more of that. I know that sounds
Sure.
crazy. But I really like
Be
it.
careful what you manifest.
I know. But you know what? I'm manifesting it, babe. I'm here for it. Let's go. Client on set. Let's do it. Like
Well, I because it's coming from an efficiency standpoint there. It's like, this is just efficient. Like of course, I'm sure it's different if you have a client or stakeholder that's really difficult to work with and is not supportive. But for somebody that is supportive and like has hired you for a reason and they trust in your work, it's like, this is just making things easier.
Yeah, it's efficiency for sure, but it's also like bouncing ideas off of somebody who has good taste. Like, they're in that position because they have good taste and they make me better. Like, at the end of the day, I want to be the best that I could possibly be. And working with world-class talent will do that. And if that means having them there and having them give feedback in real time, I can see what they see. I see why they say these things. Like, I'm looking at something totally different and in a different way than they are. So having their insights is invaluable, and having that in real time is invaluable. Like, to me, it's bliss. That's how I feel. Being on set and having like a whole team there and feeling supported, truly bliss. Like, they're some of the best moments of my life.
I'm not on set as much as I used to be these days, but I completely agree with you. It is absolute bliss. I think that has always been my favorite part of the work that I've done, has been art directing and putting together crews. And can you I mean, hearing, that's bliss and the collaborative nature of the work. I mean, so much of it comes down to the environment, like the stage that you're setting for yourself, and like, you're the one directing. If you're not prepared, if you're not in a good mood, that trickles down to everybody. Can you talk a little bit about how you get into that headspace to have that open, creative flow, collaborative setting?
When I shot Carly Kloss, I had 101 fever and the worst strep throat I'd ever had in my life. I didn't know it was strep. It was so bad. As soon as I was done, I like went straight to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on with me. I was so ill. But like, I didn't want anybody to know. The producer knew. She like got me some like throat drops. I just took like a ton of Advil, and my first assistant knew. But that was kind of it. I just, nothing else matters in that moment. That's how I feel. It's like I'm there to do a job, and like I'm sick and I feel awful, but like I think it's like the adrenaline kicks in and you're just like, okay, work brain, that's it. How do I like keep my cool? I think it's really just, I don't know, being prepared. Like all the preparation that I do ahead of time, like thinking about my lighting, thinking about the poses, researching these people, having just like, I make a couple notes in a notebook, like bullet points to bring up, like, okay, this person did XYZ thing. This is like a podcast that they were on and something that they talked about, and then also just like talking to them like a human. And like, I'm not going to get a lot of time with them anyway. So it's not like I'm there to be their best friend, but I just want them to know that like I care and I did my research. So I think like having all of those things, plus like working with a team that like I know and like and trust and have worked with many times over, I think that all of those things help me feel really prepared.
There's a lot of conversation in your work. I mean, you're conversing with people through the lens, you're making sure that you're prepared so that you can have like an actual human conversation with somebody. You have a series called In Conversation With. I would love for you to tell me about where it came from, what you were trying to create with that combination of audio and portrait.
Yeah, so In Conversation With was born out of this idea of like, when I'm on set, I don't have a lot of time with people. Like I said, it's like you kind of get like, I don't know, 5 minutes to make a connection. Not even. Sometimes I'll go over to like people when they're in hair and makeup and I'll just like introduce myself. So it doesn't feel like the time that we're on set is like the only time that we've met. There's like a little bit of familiarity there. But I wanted to do something I felt a little bit more connected. I wanted to bring it back to the basics of why I got into this, like what drew me to photography beyond just like point and shoot disposable cameras. Like when I actually started to do it in a more real way, like in high school. High school, you're learning black and white. Everybody starts there, you're developing your film yourself, you're in the dark room. It's really just like the basic beginnings. And then I was like, I want to connect with people through the lens. So it was like black and white in my studio, just us. And I was like, I think it could be interesting to like record these conversations and see, what people have to say. And I like the title In Conversation With because it's really expansive. Like it can be in conversation with friends, in conversation with death, in conversation with dating, in conversation with politics, in conversation with anything. And I've pitched this idea to like in conversation with blank. It could be literally anybody about anything. So it's very multifaceted and diverse. And then the audio, I would lay it over the image so you can kind of like hear a little bit more about like what's happening. Like you see this image and you're like, okay, but like what was the person feeling or what were they thinking? And it's like you can actually hear it. And I did pitch this, and then In Conversation With became another project that got stolen. That's the project that got stolen that I was talking about. Really, really upsetting. But that just means it's a good idea. Like,
hell yeah.
That's kind of like what it told me is like, all my pitching, all the ideas that I've had have become things. And it just means that like I have good ideas and to trust my instincts because they're good and I'm talented and I have skills and I should keep pursuing it. So as hard as it is to like see these notifications on my phone every week from this major publication that, definitely stole my idea. It's a reminder that the idea is good and I need to pursue it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit about like an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset there, where if you had a scarcity mindset, it's like, that was my idea and I will never have another idea. And how dare they take that idea versus like, all right, well, that sucks. And it sucks that I see it on a weekly basis and, imagining what could have been if I was able to pursue this the way that I wanted to, but knowing like, hey, positive lens, that means it was a really good idea and it sucks that someone took it, but it means that I'm just chock full of other ideas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, that's kind of how I'm also approaching the fine art practice is like, I think it's a little scary to endeavor into something that feels different from like my quote unquote training. Like, I'm not a sculptor. I've never done an installation before. I've never done a performance piece before, but I feel so called to it. And I'm like, I have to make this work because like, if I don't make this work, I feel like my life would be wasted. Like it would just be like so silly. Yeah. It's like, I have to make the work. So I'm like trying to figure out how to balance like the commercial work with the fine art work, with everything else that I'm doing in my life. But I'm grateful for all the ideas I have. It's just a matter of like finding the time to make them all happen,
Of course.
I wish I was a major publication that had like, support from like full-time employees, like a whole huge staff of like hundreds of people that can make the ideas happen. But I am one human.
Yeah. And it's also too, like if you were, only a photographer and you could put all your eggs in that basket, but the fact that you have other, it's not just commercial work, it's not just editorial, you also have the fine art practice. So having that many different creative pursuits, it is hard to like, double down and settle on like one thing and what it would actually take to see that succeed, or whatever your term of succeeding is. Yeah.
Yeah, I
If
often
only
toy
we all had a
around.
staff.
I know. If only we all had a staff. I often toy around with the idea of like getting an MFA. I'd really like to just like be in an art environment and be given like this opportunity to create and think of like time as a little bit looser than like the fast pace of everything needing to happen like immediately or yesterday. So I think about it, I think about residencies. I did like I did an artist retreat last year for some of the fine artwork, and that was really helpful. So, looking into grants and stuff like that. So I at least have like money to pursue those fine art projects a little bit more fully.
Yeah.
You find the
So
time.
you
You gotta
would
kind of make the time, It's like
yeah,
you can't really just like expect it to happen. You have to like block it off.
absolutely. I what I'm going to say sounds like, yeah, that's common sense, dude, but it took playing a video game for me to realize this. I got really into Stardew Valley last month. I don't know why. Just it was recommended to me by enough people, and it's a farming game, but it's really about, the neighbors and the people in the village that you meet regardless. But the idea of you have to tend to your farm on a daily basis. And if you don't tend to the farm, your plants are going to die. And now my back deck over here, I just repotted everything, and I'm looking at it all the time. And I'm thinking about it. I'm adjusting things. I'm like,
In
yeah,
real
stuff
life.
isn't go
In real life.
and now in real life, I'm actually like, I have my garden outside, and my hands are not dirty right now, but they have been dirty. I got dirt under my nails, and I'm, tweaking, and I'm putting in the time to nurture the things so that they will grow. And it kind of clicked only recently that like, yeah, if you don't water something, it's not going to grow. And it was like a light bulb of, oh yeah, that also works with creativity. If I don't nurture this passion, it's not going to grow. I'm not going to grow. And it took a video game recently for me to like have that realization, which seems like common sense, but I mean, we all come to it in different ways.
It's hard, especially
It
like
is.
as a freelancer, it's like I said, I'm the only one driving this ship, and sometimes you need a break. So it's both. It's like, the time away is not like time spent poorly. It's
Right.
regenerative. It's really important to like take that beat. And we need a little bit better work ethic in this country, like in terms of like work-life balance.
Absolutely. Taking the pictures is like maybe 5% of what your career is. And
That's how it
like,
feels.
let's talk about that other 95%, like being a freelancer. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like reframing that perspective? That's like, I'm not just a photographer. Like I'm a business person. Like I run my own business. I am hustling to do the admin and everything else that comes in with like just that little sliver of 5% of like the thing that I'm most passionate about. Can you talk about the realities of what it is to be a freelance photographer?
Yeah, I was at a lecture last night and they said like it's like 20% art and like 80% business. I don't know. 20% feels a little gracious, but I think for me it feels like it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's like 1585. It's definitely, it's like there's branding and marketing, and then there's like accounting, and then there's I don't know, admin work and accounts payable, accounts receivable. It's like I am just wearing like I'm CEO, COO, CFO, CMO, like all of it. It's just like so much. And I never intended to do that when I was 12 years old with a disposable camera. I was just like, I'm taking pictures. Or even in high school, I was like, I'm making portraits. Like this was never the goal, but it became the goal, or it became the reality. And I guess it is the goal. The goal is to have like a successful business, to be able to like thrive and support myself and family, like with what I'm doing with my life, what I've chosen to do. So it was not the intention, but I'm here now, and I'm not mad that I'm here,
Mm. You mentioned it when we were talking about in conversation with, but there's been you've been getting back to it now with a new direction, in conversation with death. And you photographed yourself for it. What made this, why death? Why was that the next right iteration of In Conversation With? From one goth to another, why is it death?
Let's go there. I'm totally down with that. We really don't talk about death enough in this country either. And unfortunately so, I had mentioned my dad and wanting to photograph him because I was afraid he was going to die one day and I wasn't going to know who he is. And he did wind up dying in 2021. My grandmother had a massive stroke. He flew here to be with her. She died the same day he tested positive for COVID. And that was really traumatic, obviously, losing him so soon after her.
Was it from COVID?
Yes, it was from COVID. He died from COVID. He tested positive for COVID and died like 6 weeks after her.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. It was really brutal. So yeah, and then, I spent a lot of time recovering from that, grieving, journaling, meditating, therapy, just so many different ways to try and help myself heal. And I felt like I was in a really good place 3 years later, 2024. And I was like ready to take on 2024 and just be like, okay, I'm going to get my life back to where it was before, like pursuing my dreams of shooting this, that, for this publication, this brand, all of those things. And then 6 weeks into 2024, my mom died very suddenly and unexpectedly. So, being an adult orphan has been another title that I guess have earned in some weird way, has been given to me, like photographer, director, artist, orphan. Like it's now another part of my identity. And I have found an adult orphan grief group. They are wonderful. I just talked with them 2 nights ago. Like we have a monthly video session. They're seriously saving graces. And so, picking up this project again, because I just am, eager to make portraits and make work that feels connected. That again, like I've always been that person. I decided to do one called In Conversation with Death. And I really want to do like a bigger series on this where I'm photographing, maybe a death doula, maybe another orphan, maybe somebody who's been widowed, maybe a doctor who witnesses death regularly, mortician, undertaker, somebody who writes wills, things like this. I think this project is beyond just photography, but is a larger conversation with death and how we approach it in this country, people who have experienced it, what they've learned from it. I think that there's a lot of wisdom that one has after they process such a deep loss. And I think that that would be helpful for other people to hear. It can make that process feel less lonely. So I photographed myself for it. And I had a dear friend, Kurtz DeMoore, really talented cinematographer as well. He was there for me in helping me clean out my dad's apartment, which is really traumatic. It's an experience I wouldn't wish on anybody to have to go through, to have to empty out their parents' home and then decide what parts of their parents' lives are worth saving and what parts of their parents' lives are now trash. But I have taken a lot of my dad's items and I want that to be part of, this larger project that I'm working on about him. When I went to Las Vegas and I photographed him and made these audios of him. So I have like literal conversations between my dad and I, like recorded, that I can listen to whenever I want, which is amazing. But also I'm still making work about him after he's died. So some of the sculptures, the installation, the video pieces, like this is all things that have been, marinating in my mind since he's died. And how does one carry on the legacy of someone that they love, and how does one honor a life that was lived? So the work has evolved over time, and I think that's really interesting. I've been working on it, I guess, for 14, 15 years, something like that. On and off, obviously. It hasn't been consistently. His death was very unexpected. So I had, it was right around the death anniversary of both of my parents. They died 3 years apart, but in close proximity to each other in terms of dates. And yeah, I just had Kurtz talk to me. It was just us having a conversation. I mic'd myself up and had the camera on a self timer, and I gave him the remote, and I would just let him click it. And I covered up like the light so I couldn't like see when the shot was about to be taken. And it was just us talking and capturing me talking. And then afterwards we did some portraits where I photographed myself. So I figure, you know what, if I'm going to go there with people, I might as well go first and understand what it's like to be on the other side, and just have somebody, have a lens in your face during a very vulnerable moment. Try to be sensitive about it. But yeah, it's a hard thing to go through. It's definitely changed how I've approached my work, how I see life in general. I try to be a little bit more loose about things and just be like, this is my one and only life, so I should enjoy it and play with it a bit, and not take everything so seriously, but also still keep to who I am as a person and an artist. Like, make work that feels connected and intimate, but playful at the same time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you did a lot of journaling and meditation after the first two losses.
Well, really, after my dad, after my mom, I really was like, I can't sit with any of this. Like, this was too intense. It was so sudden. It was like really a lot. But with my dad, I did spend a lot of time like introspectively. Journaling is like essential for me. I've fallen off since my mom died, but starting this year, I've gotten back into it. I think it's important to like sit with yourself, process things, have like a self-reflection practice. Just thinking about like, what do I really want? Where am I going? And checking in with myself pretty regularly.
You're recognizing this is the one life that I have, and trying to be open to more play and experimentation while still keeping that, serious attitude about, you take your work very seriously. You take, being a businesswoman very seriously. But what does play and experimentation look like for you?
I think that play and experimentation, like as crazy as it sounds, is really like trying these other media, like, exploring, directing more. I really, really love working with talent, like without having like equipment in front of my face. And especially, because I do have a relationship with some cinematographers, like I mentioned Bryant, there's another person, Brandon, who I work with sometimes. There are people who I have relationships with that like trust me and I trust them. So, being able to like try, like, okay, I want to direct, like I have an idea for a concept, like let's pursue it, like, producing it and all that. Sculpture, the sculptural aspect of the fine artwork that I'm doing. I have no background in sculpture, but I have these ideas, and like, as has been evidenced, like my ideas are good, people like them so much that they'll steal them. So I might as well just pursue what I feel and like what I'm attracted to, and trust that instinct. So it's kind of like just allowing me to explore other facets of art beyond photography. And like, that's kind of where the play is coming in. It's like, don't think so much, Also, like, I just got my point and shoot camera repaired. I had dropped it, and I spent like a lot of money to get that repaired. So, just having that on me, I think it's a different way of seeing, other than like just having a phone on you. Just, trying to work the muscles of like playing with other things, and just like thinking differently than like, oh, this is something that I have to make because it's like a portfolio piece. It's like, this is something I'm doing because I genuinely want to, and it's cathartic for me to do. And it feels almost necessary because it's cathartic.
I love hearing, you'll have an idea to play with something. You have your relationships with other collaborators, like cinematographers, like, you're talking about collaboration way more than just hiring a good crew to like make the end shot good. Like, there's something about the magic of what happens when the right people are in a room together. Like, so what is it? How do you build that circle of people that you genuinely trust and that you want to collaborate with?
Yeah, that's part of why I was saying like it's bliss, because it's like when these people come together, it's just like, oh my gosh, the fact that like everyone is amazing. And then like you were all available. Like it just feels like it's like magic, you know, it's wonderful. I just, word of mouth travels fast. So it's like recommendations from people. Like that's how I found a couple of my main assistants is like people come recommended to me. The alumni network at RIT. I went to RIT, shout out RIT. Um, you know, the alumni network there is wonderful. Everybody there has been so great. You know what kind of training they have because you experienced it yourself. So there's that vibes, taking a call with somebody, getting a coffee and just being like, hey, do we get along? Do we see eye to eye? Do we like each other's work? Do we like each other's style? Do we like understand the same language? Are we speaking it together? Like, will you respect me? Will I respect you? Like, if I have an idea, will you listen to me? If you have an idea, will I like it enough to follow it? Kind of those things. And like, you check in on each other's work, you see what you're up to. And then when the stars align, it happens.
So you also host a quarterly critique at your studio. So when I'm here, like, can we work together? Like if I have an idea, how are you going to respond to it, sort of thing. So how does that translate into this group critique that you do? What does that look like? And what does that give you that like the collaborations don't give you?
Oh my God, I love crit night so much. I love crit night so much. At the last one, we were talking about potentially like doing a group show and having people like show their work together, which I think would be really cool. And I was like, where would we do it? People are like, you have a studio, like you could just do it here. And I was like, oh, actually, it's like kind of a cool idea. So I'm like interested and excited about this idea of like curating as well. The crit night, what it gives me is like, man, in this commercial editorial world, I think that it's rare that we have a space where we can sit and actually look at art and like think about art that's being made, not for monetization purposes, but just because people are like excited about a project. Like I've shown work from my dad work there. Somebody just showed work on dancers. Another person showed work about like being queer and like how that is tied to like their identity and their life and being from the South. And another person showed work that she made while she was in Egypt. So it's like you're seeing all this like diverse perspective beyond just like, oh, I just flipped through this issue of GQ and like this portrait of John Hamm is really cool. It's like, valid because like, A, who doesn't love John Hamm? And B, like, what's GQ up to? Like, what are the trends, So, like, I think it's just a different way to see, and I always bring a photo editor or an art director or producer or a curator, somebody who looks at work differently than photographers, somebody whose job it is to, like, do a little bit more storytelling from a different perspective than we do. So another set of eyes can be on it. We can get feedback from people who aren't just photographers specifically, primarily. And it's great. People come, they feel like it's like therapy every time. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. People are always asking me, when's the next one? When's the next one? I want to show work. Oh my God, can you? And it's like, it's so nice because this just started from an idea of like, we have in New York and in LA, there are like all these photo happy hours where like photographers and photo editors come meet and hang out. And it's like, sometimes you don't want to be at a bar. Sometimes you don't want to be screaming. Sometimes you don't want to spend $100. Sometimes you don't want to feel forced to drink. It's like, where can we actually like connect and look at work and build community and like feel a little bit less alone? And so I was like, you know what? I have a space. I might as well do something with this space that I can offer out to other people. And I want to see what people are working on when no one's paying attention. Like what drives people, what motivates people, like what's exciting people, what do people need help with? How can we work through those problems together and like build a community? And like last time, I can't even tell you, it was like such a treasure. Really, it was. Everybody was just like thanking me so much. And they were just like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to the next one. This is like the best. I look forward to this like all the time. It's like, it's just, I don't know. It's so nice. It's so nice. And it's like, it's not about me. It's about like giving a space to other people to like show their work and like talk about their work. And how can we support each other? And people,
Yeah.
let me tell you, people come, it's so crazy. They're like, people will come to like so many, like they come back. And every time there's more people. I'm like running out of chairs. And like this last time, it was like there were so many people that wanted to show up and sign work, like in the very like sign up and show work. Like in the very beginning, it was hard to get people to show work because I think people were just like afraid and they didn't know what it was, and they were like very vulnerable, and like, people would back out last minute. And I was like, oh my God, if we don't have people show work, we have nothing to talk about. So this time it was just like, so many people signed up, and I was like, and they were like, please pick me. And I was like, next time for sure. Come to one, this is like your first one. I'm glad you're so excited, but like come to this, see what it's about. Next time show up and I'll select you. It's also about like curating the work that we're seeing together and like making sure that
Of course.
it's like
Yeah.
not all like I think last time we had like 4 people who were just like, I had a story about being queer. And I'm like, okay, like we'll do, like let's also see the work about Egypt and like see the work about dancers. It's like, let's have like diversity. We had like, one queer story, and that was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Diversity goes both ways in that way. Like coming from 2 queer people, like it's okay to not only show queer stuff. It's okay. There's other things happening too.
Right. I was like, I think if we have like, 3 queer stories and one that isn't, like the photo editor's gonna be like, okay, let's just like, we'll do it. Like, we have maybe like 2 per session.
I just thinking about the community that you've built around yourself, and making resources and knowledge available to community, like that to me looks like success. But I'm sure you have your own interpretations of what success and failure are, and I always talk about that on this podcast. Like what is your definition of success, and how has that changed as time has gone on?
Oh man, I don't know. So hard. I've thought about this, and I don't know. I think I don't know. Like it feels so vulnerable to talk about this, so I don't know how deep I'll go. But there are definitely some things that I feel like are markers of success that I have not achieved yet. Shooting at the Oscars, one, like I really want to do that, or like at Sundance or the Emmys or anything like that. Like for me, that's like a big marker of success, and I haven't achieved that yet. But the marker of success that I have achieved is that like I'm incorporated, I have a business, like I am in my office currently, like I have a studio that's like a 10-minute drive away with traffic. Like those are all things that like, Maegan at 12 years old couldn't even like fathom. And then Maegan at like 20 years old, like only could dream about. And like now Maegan in her 30s has that. So, I think that those things have definitely shifted and changed and evolved over time. And I'm grateful that I have that. Failure is hard to talk about too. And I don't really know what I would identify as failure. I think failure. So I was going to say, I think stopping, but I think that is not fair, because there are people who stop, and are they failures? No, they pivot into something else. But I think for me, I would feel like failure was just stopping completely. And that's difficult, because there are moments where like you just go through rough patches. It happens every freelancer's life. It's like, where you're just like, wow, work is really slow, or AI's entered the chat, now what? Or, like, how am I going to keep up doing this for the rest of my life, kind of thing. And so, I think if you stop, you don't know what is possible and like what could have been. And for me, that curiosity is what keeps me here, is like, well, I haven't shot at the Oscars yet, but that doesn't mean that I won't. It's like I have a list of like clients that I've wanted to work with, and I've worked with a good bit of them, and like that was me thinking editorially. Now I'm thinking more brand wise, like who are the brands I want to work with. But like editorially, like I made a list in 2019 and I've worked with a good bit of them, like Vanity Fair, T Magazine, like who else do I work with? like Washington Post, like, shooting these things are amazing. And I'm so grateful for them. There are people I haven't worked with yet. Does that mean a failure? No, it just means that like I have to keep striving. So, I'm very excited and hopeful for the future. I don't think that I'm going to be stopping anytime soon. But for me, that's, I think, what I would identify as failure is giving up, because there's so much more that I haven't done. There's so much more
I
that I
actually
haven't done yet.
I feel like that totally tracks for you, because so much of the success that you found has come through pitching, has come through putting yourself out there, making the connections, networking, building the relationships. And that is like, you're a shark, you were constantly moving. So the idea of stopping, it's like the
Yeah.
momentum ends. We talked a little bit about pitching and that, but like, can you speak to like the drive to just like how you can put yourself out there like that? Because it's hard. I was at Creative Mornings Oakland this morning and I met with somebody who was just like, hey, I'm networking right now. I'm putting myself out there. I was like, get it, girl. All right. Talk a little bit about like the headspace you have to be in. Like, have you always been in that? Like, has it always just been like a hunger and a drive for you to just like, I have an idea and I'm just gonna pitch it. I'm just gonna put myself out there.
I think, when you're talking about like how the place that you live influences you earlier, and talking to that, I think that that's so much of being a New Yorker. It's like you fight for everything you have. Like, I feel like when I leave the house, like I'm packing my bag like I'm a warrior. Cause it's like, what are all the things that I need? I'm like, all right, I need like my charger. I need my headphones. I need like my lip gloss. I need like, sunscreen just in case I need to reapply later. I need my planner book. I need a pen. I need like all of the things, I have to make sure that like I'm prepared whenever I leave the house. And so I think that like some of that, you got to fight for a seat on the train. You had to apply to get into high school here. It's like, it's just, it's a never ending battle. And I think that that's like so much of what this industry is it's like never ending battle of like, you kind of got to always make yourself heard, like the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of thing. And like I said, like I have good ideas and I just trust them. So like the more that I do, the more that I flex that muscle, the more I'm like, okay, I have to keep going with this. Like I can't really stop. I think that that's where the drive comes from. It's like, I was born into this place that is just like, the drive is the blood force of the city kind of thing.
I also think of, the intersection there of place and the identity of being a queer woman as well. Just like not carving out a niche for yourself, but just like needing to speak up even louder to make your voice heard.
Yeah, being queer has been a journey for sure. Like telling family has been hard, and some family like doesn't really know, and some family has ideas, and some family knows, and they're just like whatever about it. It runs the gamut, I think.
I've never spoken to my family about it directly. Just kind of like not interested in doing that. It's not that I feel like they're gonna disown me. I know that's not the case, but it's just like the idea of like, because I identify as queer means that I then have to have a whole coming out thing. I'm like, no, I have no desire to do that.
Yeah, I think for me, because like dating has been a thing, and so I never wanted it to be like on the person who I was dating to like be the way that I came out. It was like, I'm just going to like, I didn't really feel like it was fair to that person. So I was just like, I'm going to share this ahead of time because I don't want it to be like, surprise, I'm dating somebody, and this is how you're finding out. Like, to me, it just didn't feel fair to anybody involved. So I kind of like, that was like a little bit of that journey. I think also like coming from parents who are divorced and being like, hey, remember me in all of this, and just like, think that that's all of those things, are how I got here. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm just like, yeah, I think my work is good and I have to trust my instincts, and this is my one and only life. So I want to make it count. I want to do what feels right and make sure that I'm living fully. I've seen what it looks like to get to the end of a life. Like I've seen both of my parents die. I was there when their last breaths were being taken. It's like, it stays with you for sure. And it's like, I'm going to be there. And I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking like, I held myself back and like I have regrets. I don't want that for myself. It's like I want to know that like I lived my life fully. Like I have a memento mori calendar. When people come over, they're just like, this is fucking weird. Why do you have this? And I'm like, because I mark it off every day. For people who don't know, memento mori calendar. Memento mori means remember that you die. And it's a calendar where there are rows, and each row is equivalent to a year of your life. And each row is broken down into 52 boxes, which represents 52 weeks of every year. And so in every box, every day, I make a line, and I make 6 lines. And on the 7th day, I fill in the box. And that's how I mark off my weeks. And that's how I mark off my days. And that's how I think about my life each day, each box, each row, each segment. Am I happy with how I'm living? Am I living intentionally? Am I making use of my time? And maybe that's like a little intense, but at the same time, it's like, I really want to be able to get to the end of my life and think like, am I happy with how I spent it? That's important to me. I think I was always like that, but I think that like, the death of my parents has really kind of like elevated that feeling and taken me there further.
I love that. I think we goths are some of the most hopeful out there, despite, just check it off another day on the box. I know where this is all heading, but it's like there's beauty in that. Any upcoming projects that you're working on?
That video is coming out soon with Mark Tallman. He is on Your Friends and Neighbors. He plays the character of Nick. That was really, really fun to work on, directed by me and cinematographer Bryant Fisher, really wonderful human. I'm really excited for that video. It's just short, like fashion video, but it was like fun. I, again, casted, produced, funded.
So this one with Mark Tolman was the one that you started with a cold DM, right? You concepted, pitched, cast, produced, directed, shot, edited, retouched entirely yourself.
Printed. I don't think there's a print of him on the wall, but like, yeah, I printed it too, because I had a meeting with an ad agency. So I like printed like, this like 40-page portfolio book. I photographed Don Lemon for an upcoming art book that's coming out. He will be one of many art collectors featured in this coffee table book that Cultured Magazine is producing called The Cultured Collector. So photographed Don Lemon and a queer curator named Ellie Rhines. So that'll be cool to have come out as well. Also the Eli Manning shoot that was shot for History Channel, that should be out soon. So those are like the main things that like are coming out / are out-ish already that I can talk about. There's some other things that are in the works that I can't, but we'll end it there. That feels like a good note to end on.
I think that's a great spot to end at. And in the show notes, there'll be links to all your stuff. But if you would like to say where people can find you, you are welcome to do that.
I'm Maegan Gindi. My Instagram is Maegan Gindi. I'm Maegan Gindi everywhere. My website is Maegan Gindi. It's spelled MaeganGindi. There's no H in any of my names. People think that I'm Indian. I'm not. I'm Syrian. Not quite the same thing. Both in Asia, but not the same country. So no, please. I have to remind myself all the time. There's no H in my name. I don't know why I think that.
Not in the first name, not in the last name. There ain't an H to be seen. Nary an H.
Nary an H. People are just like, oh, that's a unique way of spelling it. I'm like, can't take credit for it, but parents did it. I'm the only Maegan Gindi on the planet. It's just me. Irish first name, don't know where that came from. Syrian last name. So there's no other Maegan Gindi. So you'll find me. I'm out there.
What I keep coming back to with Maegan is the consistency of her through line. She started with a disposable camera. Now she's shooting for Vanity Fair. The format has changed. The budget sure has changed. The medium is expanding. But the commitment to work that feels considered, that feels like her, that holds up over time, has been steadfast. She also built something around herself that I think doesn't get talked about enough. A crew she trusts, a community she tends, a practice that makes room for the commercial work and the work that nobody's paying for. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because she's been asking for a long time what kind of artist she wants to be, and what kind of life she wants to work to live inside of. That kind of clarity across mediums, across years of rough patches and stolen ideas and real loss. That's not hustle, that's integrity. That's someone who genuinely believes the work matters and acts accordingly. Check the show notes for how to connect with Maegan and check out her work. Also there, the latest word of mouth mixtape. I put these together every month, a playlist of music I'm listening to and loving. This latest playlist was compiled through April, so it's chock full of festival hits inspired by the Lilith Fair documentary and this year's Coachella. Apologies in advance if Amy Mann to Nine Inch Noise causes you whiplash. That's it for this episode of Creatives Processing. Please leave a rating wherever you're listening. It legitimately makes a difference. Spread the word and share with a friend. You can find me in my creative studio, Word of Mouth, at wordofmouthcreative.co. If you're a brand or organization looking for a creative partner, someone who leads with strategy, storytelling, and a real human point of view, that's what I do. Come say hi. This episode was produced by Word of Mouth, edited by Kai Indermar, and our theme music is by John Michael Rochelle. Till next time, thanks for listening to Creatives Processing.